6-year-old Zara Johnson's piercing scream cut through the airplane cabin as wealthy businessman Victor Roth's coffee-stained shirt became his excuse for a vicious tirade of racial slurs. Nobody moved except former Navy SEAL Commander Marcus Reed, whose weathered hands had once disarmed terrorists, now clenched into fists. "Sir, step away from the child," Marcus warned, his voice deadly calm. Victor sneered, flashing his Platinum Elite membership card. "Do you know who I am?" Neither realized this confrontation would spiral into a nationwide scandal, exposing a powerful racist network that would stop at nothing to destroy them all. Could one chance encounter on a flight truly uncover a dangerous web of hate hiding in plain sight? Before we dive into this shocking story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments below. If you believe in standing up for justice no matter the cost, hit that like button and subscribe for more true stories about everyday heroes facing extraordinary circumstances. The first-class cabin of Flight 447 from Atlanta to San Francisco gleamed with luxury. 6-year-old Zara Johnson fidgeted excitedly in her plush seat, her bright eyes taking in everything around her. It was her first time flying first class. Her mother, Dr. Amara Johnson, a renowned cardiothoracic surgeon, had splurged on the tickets for their important journey. Zara needed specialized treatment only available at UCSF Medical Center, and after months of waiting, they had finally secured an appointment with the country's leading pediatric specialist. Across the aisle sat Marcus Reed, a retired Navy SEAL commander with 3 tours in Afghanistan and 2 in Iraq under his belt. His weathered face and distant gaze spoke of battles fought both abroad and within. Since losing his team in an ambush 5 years ago, Marcus had battled PTSD, finding solace only in his advocacy work for veterans. Today's flight was taking him to a speaking engagement at a military hospital. 2 rows ahead, Victor Roth settled into his seat with entitled familiarity. The tech executive checked his Rolex impatiently as other passengers boarded. His company, Secure Tech Solutions, had government contracts worth billions, but few knew of its connections to several white supremacist groups that Victor secretly funded through elaborate networks of shell companies. "Would you like some orange juice, sweetheart?" Dr. Johnson asked her daughter as the flight attendants began their pre-takeoff service. "Yes, please." Zara bounced in her seat, her excitement palpable. The plane taxied down the runway and lifted smoothly into the air. For 30 minutes, the flight proceeded normally. Victor worked on his laptop while occasionally shooting irritated glances at the Johnsons. Marcus closed his eyes, practicing the breathing techniques his therapist had recommended for his anxiety. Suddenly, the plane hit unexpected turbulence. It lurched violently, causing Zara's full cup of orange juice to fly from her small hands. The liquid arced through the air in slow motion before splashing across Victor's pristine white shirt and $1,000 laptop. "What the hell?" Victor exploded, jumping to his feet. "Look what your little monkey did to my Brioni shirt. Do you know how much this costs?" Dr. Johnson's face froze in shock. "Sir, I'm so sorry about your shirt. It was an accident. The turbulence." "I don't care about turbulence. Keep your brat under control." Victor's face contorted with rage as he loomed over the small child. "This is why your kind shouldn't be allowed in first class. You don't belong here." Zara began to cry, shrinking back into her seat as Victor continued his tirade, each word more racist than the last. Dr. Johnson placed a protective arm around her daughter while maintaining remarkable composure. "Sir, please lower your voice. I'm happy to pay for your dry cleaning, but there's no need for that language." The lead flight attendant, Karen Matthews, finally approached. "Is there a problem here?" Before Dr. Johnson could speak, Victor turned, his charm on instantly. "This child ruined my shirt and laptop. I demand to be moved to another seat, away from these people." Karen nodded sympathetically. "Of course, Mr. Roth. We value our platinum members. Let me see what I can do." Dr. Johnson's jaw tightened. "Excuse me, but he just used racial slurs against my daughter. She's 6 years old and it was an accident due to turbulence." Karen's smile never wavered. "Ma'am, I'm sure Mr. Roth was just upset in the moment. We need everyone to remain calm." Victor's voice rose again. I won't be calm. I want them removed from first class. They clearly can't control themselves. As he gesticulated wildly, his hand came dangerously close to Zara's face, causing her to flinch and let out a terrified scream. That's when Marcus Reed stood up. "That's enough," he said, his voice carrying the authority of a man who had commanded elite units in combat zones. "Step away from the child. Now." Victor spun around, sizing up Marcus. "Mind your own business. This doesn't concern you." "You're threatening a child. That makes it my business," Marcus replied, stepping into the aisle. Victor sneered, flashing his platinum membership card. "Do you know who I am? I can have you put on a no-fly list with one phone call." Other passengers began taking sides. A woman behind Dr. Johnson muttered, "Those people never watch their children." A businessman nodded in agreement with Victor. A few looked uncomfortable but said nothing. Marcus didn't budge. "Sir, I'm asking you nicely to return to your seat." Victor's face flushed with anger. "Are you threatening me? I'll have you arrested." He lunged forward as if to push past Marcus to continue berating the Johnsons. With minimal movement, Marcus sidestepped and used Victor's momentum to guide him firmly but safely back into an empty seat. "Don't you touch me," Victor sputtered. "This is assault, flight attendant." Karen rushed over again. "Sir, please return to your seat. We can't have any physical altercations." Marcus noted that her concern was directed at him, not at Victor, who had been threatening a child. "He assaulted me," Victor shouted, though everyone could see Marcus had barely touched him. "I'm calling the captain," Karen declared, reaching for the cabin phone. Dr. Johnson stood up. "I want to file a formal complaint. This man verbally assaulted my daughter with racial slurs, and your staff has done nothing." Amara Johnson's voice carried the weight of her professional standing, but Karen barely acknowledged her. As the confrontation escalated, Victor pulled out his phone, subtly turning away. "I need to make a quick call," he muttered, despite the rules against phone use during flight. "Hello? It's me. We have a situation. There's an interfering black doctor and some military type causing problems. I need you to make some calls. Flight 447 to San Francisco." He spoke quietly, but Marcus's trained ears caught every word. 10 minutes later, the captain's voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, due to a security concern, we're making an emergency landing at Denver International Airport. Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened." Dr. Johnson looked confused. Security concern? But nothing's happened except this man's behavior. Marcus's eyes narrowed. After years in intelligence operations, he recognized the signs of powerful connections being activated. Whatever was happening, this wasn't about airline security. It was about Victor Roth making sure he came out on top. As the plane began its descent, Victor smiled coldly across the aisle at them. "You should have minded your own business," he said quietly. "Now you'll see what happens to people who cross me." Marcus met his gaze steadily. In that moment, he made a decision. Whatever game Victor Roth was playing, he had just picked the wrong people to target. A decorated Navy SEAL and a determined mother protecting her child were not enemies to take lightly. Little did any of them know, this confrontation was just the beginning of a dangerous game that would expose a nationwide network of hate and corruption, putting all their lives at risk. The moment Flight 447 touched down in Denver, something felt wrong. Instead of taxiing to a regular gate, the aircraft was directed to a remote area of the airport where 3 black SUVs and several security vehicles waited. "What's happening?" Dr. Johnson whispered, clutching Zara closer. Marcus's military instincts were on high alert. "Stay calm. Something's not right." As passengers began to disembark, a team of airport security officers boarded, heading straight for their row. The lead officer, a stern-faced man with the name Williams on his badge, ignored Victor Roth completely. "Dr. Amara Johnson, Marcus Reed, I need you both to come with us." Dr. Johnson stood her ground. "May I ask why? We've done nothing wrong." "Security protocol, ma'am. We received reports of a disturbance." Marcus noted the deliberate avoidance of mentioning Victor Roth, who was now smirking as he gathered his belongings. "What about him?" Marcus challenged, pointing at Victor. He verbally assaulted a child with racial slurs. Officer Williams barely glanced at Victor. "Sir, we're handling this according to protocol. Please don't make this more difficult." As they were escorted through the terminal, Marcus noticed something disturbing. Passengers who had recorded the incident on their phones were being stopped by security officers. "Excuse me, ma'am, we'll need to confiscate that device temporarily," one officer was saying to an elderly woman who had been sitting near them. "But why? I was just recording for my grandson." "Airport security protocols, ma'am. Potential terrorism concerns." Marcus and Dr. Johnson exchanged alarmed glances. Terrorism? For documenting a racist tirade? In the security office, they were separated. Zara clung to her mother, silent tears streaming down her face. The child hadn't spoken a word since Victor's outburst. Through the glass partition, Marcus could see Victor being escorted through a private entrance, where a man in an expensive suit greeted him with a handshake and a pat on the back. The security captain himself. "Captain Reynolds," Marcus overheard. "Good to see you, Vic. Just like old Sigma Chi days, I've got your back." Marcus's jaw tightened. College fraternity connections. The system protecting its own. Meanwhile, Dr. Johnson was facing her own nightmare. "Dr. Johnson, your hospital's chief of surgery is on the line," an officer announced, handing her a phone. Dr. Johnson's face paled. How does he even know about this incident? "We just landed." As she took the call, Marcus could see her professional composure cracking for the first time. "No, sir, that's not what happened at all. Yes, I understand the hospital's reputation. No, I wasn't causing a scene." When she hung up, her hands were shaking. "They're threatening my position. Somehow they've already contacted the hospital board claiming I was behaving aggressively on the flight. They've scheduled an emergency review of my privileges." Marcus's military training kicked in. This wasn't random. This was a coordinated attack using established systems to punish those who challenged the status quo. He had seen similar tactics in authoritarian regimes abroad. While being interrogated, Marcus noticed one passenger being escorted out still clutching their phone. Using a diversion technique he had learned in special ops, he created a minor commotion by accidentally knocking over a water pitcher, allowing him to slip the passenger a note. "Upload video, tag, Justice for Zara." As the chaos settled, a young TSA agent slipped Marcus a folded paper while pretending to check his credentials. "They flagged you in the system," the note read. "Homeland Security alert, be careful." Marcus crumpled the note and swallowed it, a technique he had used in the field when compromised. Dr. Johnson was now desperately trying to comfort Zara, who remained completely silent, her eyes vacant, a psychological shutdown in response to trauma. "What kind of country are we living in?" she whispered to Marcus when they were briefly left alone. "He attacks my child, and we're the ones being treated like criminals." Marcus leaned closer. "This isn't random. Roth made a call before we landed. He has connections, and they're trying to bury this fast. We need to get out of here and find help." Dr. Johnson looked at him, really seeing him for the first time. "Why are you helping us? You don't even know us." A shadow crossed Marcus's face. "I know what it's like to be powerless against a system that's supposed to protect you. And I've seen what happens when good people do nothing." Just then, breaking news flashed on the security office television. "Disturbance on Flight 447. Aggressive passengers confront business executive." The footage showed only the moment Marcus guided Victor into the seat, completely out of context, making it appear like an unprovoked attack. "They're controlling the narrative," Marcus muttered. Dr. Johnson watched in horror as her own image appeared with the caption, "Doctor involved in airline altercation." "My career, my daughter's treatment," she whispered. Marcus made a decision. "Listen carefully. When we leave here, we can't go to your planned hotel. They'll be watching. I have contacts who can help us lay low until we can set the record straight." Dr. Johnson hesitated, understandably wary of trusting a stranger. "Mom?" Zara spoke for the first time since the incident, her voice small. "The bad man is going to come back. The soldier can help us." The trust of her child decided it. Dr. Johnson nodded. As they were finally released with warnings, Marcus noticed Victor Roth being escorted to a private car, laughing with the security captain. Victor locked eyes with Marcus and made a slashing motion across his throat. Have you ever witnessed someone abusing their power and connections to escape consequences? Comment. Number 1. If you believe our justice system often fails those without wealth and privilege. Like and subscribe if you want to see powerful people held accountable for their actions. What lengths would Victor go to silence those who stood up to him? Just how deep did his connections run? Stay tuned as this ordinary flight turns into an extraordinary fight for justice against a system designed to protect the powerful. Under the cover of night, Marcus guided Dr. Johnson and Zara through a series of calculated movements designed to evade surveillance. He had called in a favor from Denver cab driver Miguel Sanchez, a former Army Ranger who owed Marcus his life after a rescue operation in Kandahar. No credit cards, no phones, Marcus instructed as they climbed into Miguel's cab. They'll be monitoring everything electronic. Where are we going? Dr. Johnson asked, cradling a still-shaken Zara. To see a ghost, Marcus replied cryptically. 40 minutes later, they arrived at a modest house in the suburbs. A tall, muscular man with a prosthetic leg opened the door before they even knocked. Commander, he nodded respectfully at Marcus. Jackson, thanks for taking us in. Jackson, Wilson, former Navy SEAL and Marcus's second in command, ushered them inside quickly. House is clean, he reported, military shorthand for no surveillance devices. But you're all over the news, boss. In Jackson's living room, the full gravity of their situation became clear. Every major network was running the story. Unstable veteran and angry doctor attack respected businessman. This is insane, Dr. O. Johnson whispered, watching footage of herself edited to make it appear as if she was shouting aggressively. That's not what happened at all. Marcus paced the room. Victor Roth, we need to know exactly who we're dealing with. While Jackson prepared a secure computer, Marcus finally explained to Dr. Johnson why he had become so personally involved. 3 years ago, I had a daughter, he began, his voice hollow. Sophia. She was attending university on a full scholarship. Brilliant kid. One night she was driving home from the library when she was pulled over by police. According to witnesses, she was completely cooperative, but they dragged her from the car anyway, said she was combative. Dr. Johnson closed her eyes, already sensing where this story was heading. She died in custody. Official report said she resisted arrest, had a heart condition. Body cam footage mysteriously corrupted. The officers involved were cleared in 2 weeks. Marcus's hands formed fists. I tried fighting through the system, hired lawyers, filed complaints. Then my military pension was mysteriously frozen. My home was raided on an anonymous tip. My reputation destroyed. I'm so sorry, Dr. Johnson whispered. When I saw that man threatening your daughter, saw how the system immediately moved to protect him, Marcus shook his head. I couldn't stand by again. Zara, who had been silent, suddenly approached Marcus and placed her small hand in his. The gesture nearly broke him. Their moment was interrupted by Jackson's worried voice. Boss, we've got problems. On the computer screen, Dr. Johnson's medical license information was being publicly leaked on multiple forums. Her home address, Zara's school, even confidential patient information was spreading online. How is this possible? She gasped. Someone's using serious resources, Jackson explained. This isn't amateur work. Marcus studied the screen. Roth, he's sending a message. I can reach you anywhere. Just then, Jackson's secure phone buzzed. Hang on, he said, reading the message. Holy shit, the hashtag #Justice for Zara is trending. Someone uploaded video from the flight. They gathered around the small screen. The video clearly showed Victor's racist tirade and threatening gestures toward Zara. Comments were flooding in, expressing outrage. This might shift the narrative, Jackson said hopefully. Dr. Johnson nearly collapsed with relief. Finally, some truth. Her relief was short-lived. Within an hour, The video was flagged and removed from multiple platforms for terms of service violations. He's got connections in tech too, Marcus observed grimly. A local Denver news station reached out through one of Jackson's contacts, wanting to interview Dr. Johnson and Marcus to tell their side. This could be our chance, Dr. Johnson insisted. Marcus was skeptical, but agreed they needed to counter the false narrative. Using elaborate precautions, they arranged an interview at a neutral location. The interview seemed to go well. Dr. Johnson was articulate and dignified as she recounted the traumatic experience. Marcus provided corroboration with the measured precision of a military officer. Their hopes were crushed when the broadcast aired. The interview had been heavily edited, making Dr. Johnson appear defensive and Marcus unstable. The reporter concluded with, "Questions remain about whether racial allegations are being used to excuse disruptive behavior. They cut everything that supported our account," Dr. Johnson said in disbelief. As if on cue, Victor Roth appeared on a competing network in a live interview. His eyes glistened with manufactured tears as he described being viciously attacked by an unhinged veteran with PTSD and an aggressive woman playing the race card. "I feel for the child," Victor said with practiced sincerity. "She's clearly being used as a pawn by her mother." Marcus hurled the remote at the wall. "This son of a bitch has everyone in his pocket." Jackson returned from his makeshift command center in the basement. "It's worse than we thought," he reported. "I've been digging into Roth's background. His company, SecureTech, isn't just any tech firm. They provide surveillance systems to half the law enforcement agencies in the country. They also have ties to 3 private prison companies." "That explains the law enforcement connections," Marcus muttered. "There's more," Jackson continued. "I found financial links between shell companies owned by Roth and several known hate groups. This guy isn't just a racist who lost his temper. He actively funds white supremacist organizations while maintaining a respectable public image." Dr. Johnson received another devastating blow when her phone vibrated with an email notification. "They've scheduled an emergency medical board review for tomorrow. If they suspend my license, Zara's treatment." She couldn't finish the sentence. Marcus placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "We're going to fight this. We just need to—" He was interrupted by Jackson's security system chiming. On the monitor, they watched as 3 black SUVs pulled up outside, disgorging men in tactical gear. "They're not police," Marcus noted immediately, recognizing the movements of private military contractors. "And they didn't come with a warrant." "How did they find us?" Dr. Johnson gasped. Marcus's expression darkened. "Someone's tracking us. We need to move now." Jackson hit a button under his desk, revealing a hidden passage. "Underground tunnel leads to the garage next door. Cars ready, supplies packed." "Just like the old contingency plans, Commander." Marcus nodded gratefully at his former teammate. "You're not coming? Someone needs to slow them down, give you a head start." Jackson checked his weapon. "Don't worry about me. Just keep them safe." As they hurried through the tunnel, Zara looked back. Will the other soldier be okay? Marcus couldn't bring himself to lie to her. Jackson is very brave and very smart. He knows what he's doing. Behind them, they heard the front door being breached as Jackson prepared to face down men who weren't constrained by law enforcement rules. They had escaped temporarily, but Marcus knew the truth now. This wasn't just about one racist incident on a plane. They had stumbled into something much bigger and more dangerous. Victor Roth commanded resources that went far beyond what any ordinary businessman should have, and he was using everything at his disposal to crush them. The underground tunnel was narrow and damp, forcing them to move in single file. Marcus led the way, guiding them with a small tactical flashlight. Zara clung to her mother's hand, showing remarkable composure for a 6-year-old. "We're almost there," Marcus whispered as they approached what appeared to be a dead end. He pressed specific spots on the wall in sequence, revealing a hidden door that opened into a garage. Inside sat an inconspicuous older model sedan with tinted windows and plates from Wyoming. "Jackson thinks of everything," Marcus muttered appreciatively. As they drove away, they heard distant popping sounds from the direction of Jackson's house. Were those... Dr. Johnson couldn't finish the sentence. Flashbangs, not gunfire, Marcus assured her, though he wasn't entirely confident. Jackson's, too smart to engage directly. He's creating distractions. They drove in silence for several miles, taking a complex route designed to identify and lose any tail. Marcus's training in evasive driving during his SEAL days was proving invaluable. Where are we going? Dr. Johnson finally asked. Somewhere they won't look for us, Marcus replied. But first, we need to ditch anything that could be tracked. At a truck stop, Marcus purchased prepaid phones with cash while Dr. Johnson and Zara waited in the car, hidden under blankets. When he returned, he instructed them to remove the batteries from their regular phones. These people have resources, beyond what you can imagine, he explained. Regular police need warrants for phone tracking. Private contractors don't. They continued driving through the night, eventually reaching a small town in the mountains. Marcus pulled into the parking lot of a modest motel. Wait here, he instructed, before disappearing inside. He returned with a room key. Paid cash, registered under a name that won't raise flags. The motel room was basic, but clean. As Dr. Johnson helped Zara settle in, Marcus scanned news reports on the burner phone. It's getting worse, he announced grimly. They've issued arrest warrants for both of us. Dr. Johnson froze. What? On what charges? Assault of a passenger for me. And... He hesitated. What? She demanded. They're claiming you kidnapped Zara, that you don't have full custody. Dr. Johnson's face contorted with fury. That's absurd. I'm her only parent. Her father died before she was born. They're creating a narrative that makes you look unstable and dangerous. It gives them legal cover to pursue us aggressively. The television in their room suddenly blared with breaking news. Marcus quickly lowered the volume as they watched in horror. The anchor spoke with practiced concern. Authorities are searching for Dr. Amara Johnson, who allegedly assaulted a passenger on Flight 447 before fleeing with her daughter. Sources close to the investigation suggest Dr. Johnson has a history of erratic behavior that had been reported to Child Protective Services. That's a lie, Dr. Johnson hissed. I've never had any complaints. The report continued. Also wanted for questioning is Marcus Reed, a former Navy SEAL with a history of PTSD-related incidents. Experts suggest his military training makes him potentially dangerous. The screen showed their photos side by side, making them look like dangerous fugitives. They're destroying our reputations, Dr. Johnson whispered, her voice breaking. My patients, my colleagues, everyone will believe this. In that moment, Zara, who had been sitting quietly on the bed, took out a small notebook from her backpack and began drawing intensely. What are you drawing, sweetheart? Her mother asked, trying to maintain normalcy. Zara turned the notebook around. The crude but clear drawing showed Victor Roth's angry face looming over her, his mouth open in a shout, with speech bubbles containing the racial slurs he had used. I remember everything the bad man said, Zara spoke softly. He called me a monkey. He said we don't belong. Dr. Johnson embraced her daughter, tears streaming down her face. I'm so sorry you had to hear those terrible things. Marcus watched the interaction, his resolve hardening. Zara's memories might be our most powerful evidence. She's a witness too. Their moment was interrupted by a notification on the burner phone. A message from an unknown number. Jackson safe. Network activated. Media narrative splitting. What does that mean? Dr. Johnson asked. Marcus brought up a social media feed. The hashtag #EastJusticeForZara had returned with a vengeance, accompanied by I believe Zara and where is the video? People were questioning why airline footage hadn't been released and why authorities were pursuing a mother and child so aggressively. The truth is getting out, Marcus said. Some people are starting to question the official story. Their momentary hope was crushed when they switched to a news channel showing protests outside Dr. Johnson's hospital. But looking closer, they realized something odd. Those aren't real protesters, Marcus observed. Look at their signs. They're all perfectly printed. Same font, same material. This is staged. Dr. Johnson recognized the tactic. Astroturfing, making it look like a grassroots movement when it's actually orchestrated. Just then, an investigative journalist named Rebecca Chen appeared on screen, questioning the official narrative. Sources inside the airline confirmed that the full video of the incident exists but hasn't been released. Why are authorities pursuing a decorated veteran and a respected surgeon so aggressively over an alleged verbal altercation? And why is Victor Roth, who has previous complaints about aggressive behavior, being portrayed as the victim? We need to contact her, Dr. Johnson said immediately. She's asking the right questions. Using elaborate precautions, they managed to establish secure communication with Rebecca, who agreed to meet them at a neutral location. The journalist arrived alone as promised. "I've been investigating Victor Roth for months," she revealed. "Your incident on the plane might be the key to exposing him." "Exposing what exactly?" Marcus asked. Secure Tech isn't just a company. It's the technological arm of a sophisticated network that uses surveillance, private security, and media manipulation to protect powerful people with specific ideological views. Rebecca lowered her voice. Roth's company has created algorithms that target minorities for everything from loan denials to increased police scrutiny, all while maintaining a respectable public image. For the first time, they had found a genuine. Rebecca agreed to publish a preliminary story questioning the official narrative while continuing to investigate Roth's network. Their relief was short-lived. The next morning, breaking news announced that Rebecca Chen had been arrested on charges of violations of national security protocols. Footage showed federal agents raiding her office. "That's not a coincidence," Marcus said grimly. "Anyone who helps us becomes a target." As they debated their next move, Dr. Johnson's burner phone rang. The caller ID showed Jackson's number. "Don't answer it," Marcus warned. Jackson would never call directly unless... Too late. Dr. Johnson had already answered. "Hello?" Marcus grabbed the phone, listening to the voice on the other end. It wasn't Jackson. "We know where you are," a cold voice stated. "That motel won't hide you for long. Mr. Roth is offering a deal. Recant your story publicly, admit you fabricated the racial incident, and this all goes away." Marcus ended the call immediately. "We need to move. Now." They barely made it out of the motel before 3 black SUVs converged on the parking lot. As they sped away in their nondescript sedan, Zara looked back through the rear window. "The bad men are following us," she reported with eerie calm. Marcus executed a series of evasive maneuvers he had learned in combat driving courses, finally losing their pursuers by cutting through a shopping mall parking lot and doubling back through a service entrance. "We can't keep running," Dr. Johnson said once they were temporarily safe. "Zara needs her treatment. I need to clear my name. We need to fight back somehow." Marcus nodded grimly. "You're right. And I think I know how. Zara's drawings reminded me of something. People often forget that children are witnesses too." He turned to look at Zara in the back seat. "Zara, when the incident happened on the plane, did your mom have her phone out at any point?" Zara nodded slowly. "Mommy was showing me pictures of the doctors we were going to see. Then the bad man started yelling, and I was scared. I took Mommy's phone and held it tight. I pressed the button that makes videos because I wanted to remember his face if he came back." Dr. Johnson's eyes widened. "Zara, are you saying you recorded the incident?" The little girl nodded solemnly. "I didn't want to tell. The phone says it's wrong to record people without asking." For the first time in days, a genuine smile broke across Marcus's face. "Zara, you might have just saved us all." The smile faded quickly. "But we can't access the phone, it's too risky. They'll be monitoring your accounts for any sign you've logged in." Dr. Johnson's shoulders slumped in defeat, but Marcus wasn't giving up. "I know someone who can help. A tech expert who specializes in exactly this kind of problem." As they drove toward their next potential ally, they had no way of knowing that Victor Roth had just offered a $50,000 reward for information leading to their capture, or that the network of hate they were fighting extended far beyond one powerful businessman. The address led them to an unassuming suburban house with solar panels and an overgrown garden. Marcus parked 2 blocks away, approaching on foot while Dr. Johnson and Zara waited in the car. "Who is this person?" Dr. Johnson asked when Marcus returned to guide them inside. "Elijah Green, former NSA, now freelances as a cybersecurity consultant. If anyone can extract that video without triggering alerts, it's him." The man who opened the door had kind eyes behind thick glasses and dreadlocks pulled back in a ponytail. His home was a chaotic mix of computer equipment and houseplants. "Commander Reed," Elijah nodded. "When you said emergency, I didn't expect this." He gestured to the news playing silently on one of his many monitors, showing their faces. "We need your help, Eli," Marcus said, "and we're running out of options." After explaining their situation, Marcus turned to Zara. "The video you took is extremely important. Can you tell Mr. Green exactly what you did with Mommy's phone?" Zara described how she had recorded the incident, confirming what they had hoped. There was clear video evidence of Victor's racist tirade and threatening behavior. "Here's the problem," Elijah explained, examining Dr. Johnson's phone, which they'd kept powered off. "The moment we turn this on and connect to any network, it'll ping cell towers. They'll have your location in minutes." "Can you extract the video without connecting?" Marcus asked. Elijah stroked his beard thoughtfully. "Maybe, but there's another problem. The phone requires facial recognition to unlock." "Can't you hack around that?" Dr. Johnson asked. "Normally, yes, but attempting multiple failed unlocks will trigger security protocols, and using your actual face." Elijah gestured to the TV screen showing her photo nationwide. "Facial recognition systems everywhere are probably programmed to flag you." They faced an impossible dilemma. The evidence that could clear them was locked in a device they couldn't safely access. "What if we could clone just the video file without fully unlocking the phone?" Marcus suggested. Elijah's eyes lit up. "That might work. I'd need to create a hardware bridge to bypass the operating system entirely. It's risky, but possible." While Elijah worked, Marcus monitored police scanners and news reports. The manhunt was intensifying. Victor Roth had appeared on a morning show, increasing his reward offer to $100,000. "This isn't just about covering up one incident anymore," Dr. Johnson observed. "He seems obsessed with destroying us." "Why?" Marcus's expression darkened. "Because we represent a threat to something bigger. Remember what Rebecca said about SecureTech's algorithms targeting minorities? I think we stumbled onto the tip of an iceberg." After hours of delicate work, Elijah finally extracted the video file. They gathered around his monitor to watch. The footage, shot from Zara's lap-level perspective, was damning. It captured every racist slur, every threatening gesture Victor had made. Most crucially, it showed flight attendant Karen Matthews deliberately ignoring Victor's behavior while targeting Marcus and Dr. Johnson. "This is it," Dr. Johnson whispered. "This proves everything. Now we need to release it without exposing your location," Marcus said. Elijah outlined a complex plan involving multiple VPNs and decoy uploads from different locations. "We'll create diversionary uploads to draw attention away from your actual location." While they worked on the technical aspects, Dr. Johnson attended to Zara, who was showing signs of increased anxiety. "My chest hurts, Mommy," the little girl complained. Dr. Johnson's professional concern immediately overrode everything else. She took Zara's pulse, checking her breathing with practiced movements. "How long has her heart condition been symptomatic?" Marcus asked quietly. "Since she was 3. That's why we were traveling to San Francisco, for a specialized treatment, protocol only available there." Dr. Johnson's voice cracked. "Every day we're delayed." Marcus placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll get her there, I promise." Elijah's plan was soon ready. They would upload the video to multiple platforms simultaneously, routing through servers across the country. "Even if they trace the uploads, they'll be chasing ghosts," Elijah explained. As they finalized preparations, Marcus received an encrypted message from Jackson. "Urgent. Victor offering $250K to private contractors. Medical board proceeding with emergency hearing in absentia. Dr. Johnson read the message over his shoulder. They're going to suspend my license without me even being there to defend myself. We're about to change the narrative, Marcus assured her. Once this video goes public, Elijah interrupted, his face pale. We have a problem. My assistant Leo just texted asking weird questions about my schedule. We've worked together for 3 years, and he's never asked about my home routine. Before, Marcus immediately tensed. He's been compromised. How much does he know? He helped set up my home security system. He knows about my panic room, my backup generators. Elijah trailed off, the implications clear. How long ago did he text? 20 minutes. Marcus moved to the window, carefully peering through the blinds. We need to finish the upload and move, now. They worked frantically, finalizing the upload sequence. Just as Elijah hit enter, Marcus spotted movement across the street. They're here. 3 plainclothes operatives, tactical positioning. The video began uploading to 20 different platforms simultaneously, progress bars crawling across the screen. How long? Marcus demanded. 2 minutes for complete upload, Elijah replied. We don't have 2 minutes. We need to create a diversion. Marcus grabbed his jacket. I'll draw them away. You get Dr. Johnson and Zara out through the back once the upload completes. Marcus, no, Dr. Johnson protested. It's the only way, he insisted. Meet me at contingency point B in 3 hours. Before she could argue further, Marcus slipped out the side door. They watched on Elijah's security cameras as he deliberately made himself visible, then ran toward the opposite end of the neighborhood. 2 of the operatives immediately pursued him, but 1 remained watching the house. He's buying us time, Elijah said grimly. Upload at 90%. Dr. Johnson clutched Zara close, whispering reassurances. The little girl, showing wisdom beyond her years, remained perfectly quiet. Upload complete, Elijah announced. Now we wait for confirmation that it's gaining traction. Within minutes, notifications began appearing. The video was spreading rapidly, hashtags trending, news organizations picking it up. It's working, Dr. Johnson breathed. Their celebration was cut short by the sound of breaking glass from the front of the house. They're breaching, Elijah hissed, grabbing a go bag. This way. He led them to what appeared to be a pantry, pressed a hidden switch, and revealed a concealed exit that led to an adjacent property. Emergency escape route, he explained. Planned for digital emergencies, not paramilitary ones, but it works either way. They fled through backyards and side streets until they reached a parking garage where Elijah had a second vehicle. What about Marcus? Dr. Johnson asked as they drove away. Commander Reed is the most capable person I know, Elijah assured her. If anyone can evade capture, it's him. As they headed toward the rendezvous point, news alerts flooded Elijah's secure phone. The video had gone viral. Major networks were running it unedited. Public opinion was rapidly shifting. We're winning the information war, Elijah noted. But Roth is escalating the physical one. The rendezvous time came and went with no sign of Marcus. Dr. Johnson paced anxiously while Zara slept in the back seat, exhausted from the constant tension. Just as they were losing hope, a motorcycle approached. The rider removed his helmet, revealing Marcus's face, bruised but triumphant. Sorry I'm late. Had to take the scenic route. His smile faded when he saw their expressions. What's wrong? Elijah handed him the phone. Roth just doubled the reward again, $500,000 now, and he's added something new. He's hired a team of private military contractors, former special forces. These aren't rent-a-cops, Marcus. These are people with skills like yours. Marcus scanned the alert, his jaw tightening. He's desperate. The video is working. But now, he's not just trying to discredit us, Dr. Johnson said. He's trying to eliminate us completely. Have you ever felt that the more truth you revealed, the more dangerous your situation became? Comment number 1. If you believe powerful people will go to extraordinary lengths to protect their reputation, even when they're clearly in the wrong. If you support those brave enough to stand up to systemic corruption, hit that like button and subscribe now. How far would Victor Roth go to silence the truth? Would his desperate escalation become his undoing, or would it overwhelm our heroes who were already pushed to their limits? With Zara's health deteriorating and professional killers on their trail, what desperate measures would Marcus need to take next? The midnight meeting took place in an abandoned church on the outskirts of town. 5 individuals sat in the shadows, their faces illuminated only by the soft glow of a single lantern. They represented a network that had existed in the shadows for decades, people who had experienced racial injustice firsthand and created an underground railroad of sorts for victims. "I've vetted them," said an elderly woman introduced only as Ms. Harriet. "Their story checks out." Marcus, Dr. Johnson, and Zara had been brought here blindfolded for their own protection. Elijah had connected them to this group through channels so secure they seemed almost mystical. "Victor Roth isn't just any wealthy racist," explained a man called Bishop, a former civil rights attorney who'd been disbarred after challenging a powerful judge. SecureTech has contracts with 37 states for prison surveillance systems. They've developed predictive policing algorithms that disproportionately target minority neighborhoods. "But that's just business," added a younger woman named Grace, a data scientist who'd lost her career after whistleblowing. "His real passion project is a digital platform that identifies and tracks civil rights activists, cataloging their vulnerabilities for future leverage." Dr. Johnson clutched Zara closer. "So when we exposed him on that plane, you became a threat to both his business empire and his ideological project," Bishop confirmed. "Roth sits on the boards of 3 private prison companies. His algorithms ensure a steady supply of inmates, primarily Black and Hispanic men, guaranteeing profits for shareholders." Marcus absorbed this information grimly. "That explains the resources he's willing to expend to destroy us. We're not just witnesses to a racist incident. We're threats to a multi-billion-dollar operation." While they spoke, Zara's breathing became increasingly labored. Dr. Johnson immediately shifted to physician mode, checking her pulse. "Her condition is deteriorating," she announced, fear evident in her voice. "Without her scheduled treatment." The group exchanged concerned glances. Ms. Harriet spoke first. "We have a doctor in our network. Not a specialist like you need, but someone who might help temporarily." As if summoned by these words, the church door opened to admit a middle-aged man carrying a medical bag. "Dr. Williams," Ms. Harriet introduced him, former chief of pediatrics at Mercy Hospital until he reported racial disparities in treatment protocols. Dr. Williams examined Zara thoroughly, conferring with Dr. Johnson in hushed medical terminology. Their conclusion was sobering. "She needs proper hospital equipment," Dr. Williams finally stated. "I can provide temporary measures, but without the specialized treatment in San Francisco." The unspoken threat hung in the air. Dr. Johnson faced an impossible choice: risk capture by seeking proper medical care, or watch her daughter's condition worsen potentially beyond recovery. "I'll create a field treatment protocol," Dr. Johnson decided. "If we can stabilize her for 72 hours, maybe public opinion will shift enough that we can safely seek hospital care." While Dr. Johnson and Dr. Williams collaborated on Zara's treatment, Marcus received disturbing news from Jackson, who had finally re-established secure contact. "Roth is going nuclear on the PR front," Jackson reported. "He's claiming the viral video was manipulated. He's hired so-called experts who are testifying that the footage was doctored." "That's impossible," Marcus objected. "Any legitimate forensic analysis would confirm its authenticity." "These aren't legitimate experts," Jackson replied grimly. "They're paid associates. Meanwhile, he's portraying you as dangerous fugitives who kidnapped a child for publicity." The news grew worse. Police departments nationwide had been placed on high alert with a potential terrorism advisory, giving them expanded authorities to pursue them. Homeland Security had added their names to watch lists. Marcus assembled the group. "We need to change strategies. Defense isn't working. We need to go on the offensive." Bishop nodded thoughtfully. "We have contacts in independent media, people who haven't been bought or intimidated." "And I've been gathering testimonies," Grace added. 17 former employees of SecureTech willing to speak about racial coding in their algorithms. 3 Former flight attendants from the same airline with similar stories about protecting Platinum members, regardless of behavior. A plan began to form. While Dr. Johnson focused on Zara's medical needs, Marcus and the network would compile a comprehensive case against Roth and SecureTech, revealing not just the airline incident, but the entire corrupt system behind it. Dr. Williams contributed a crucial element by providing specialized medications from underground pharmaceutical networks that served patients without health insurance. These would help stabilize Zara temporarily. These are the same meds that cost thousands in the regular market, he explained. We source them through Canadian pharmacies for people who would otherwise die without treatment. As their strategy developed, Marcus received a secure call from a burner phone. "Commander," came a familiar voice. "Torres?" Marcus recognized his former team's communications specialist instantly. "We saw the video. The whole team is watching what's happening. We're with you, sir." Soon, Marcus's former SEAL teammates began providing remote support, using their specialized skills to secure communications and gather intelligence on Roth's operations. The network's legal expert, a woman called Justine, helped craft a strategy with a prominent civil rights attorney who agreed to represent them secretly. "We file simultaneously in multiple jurisdictions," she explained. "Federal civil rights violations, airline regulatory complaints, medical ethics board appeals. We flood the system so they can't silence everything at once." For a brief moment, it seemed they might be gaining ground. The hashtag #BelieveZara had evolved into a broader, Roth-exposed movement. Independent media outlets were picking up the story, examining SecureTech's contracts and algorithms. Then, disaster struck. Their safe location was compromised. "We have a breach," Bishop announced urgently, checking his security monitors. "Private investigators. They found us." "How?" Marcus demanded. "Someone followed Dr. Williams," Bishop realized. "They've called for backup. Police response incoming." They had minutes to evacuate. As they fled through a predetermined escape route, they could hear sirens approaching from multiple directions. "Split up," Marcus ordered. "They're expecting a group. Dr. Johnson, Zara, and I will head north. The rest of you disperse according to protocol." Ms. Harriet pressed a thumb drive into Marcus's hand. "All the evidence we've gathered. Keep it safe." They narrowly escaped as dozens of police vehicles converged on the church. Helicopter searchlights swept the area as they hid under a highway overpass, Zara struggling to breathe quietly despite her condition. "Her oxygen levels are dropping," Dr. Johnson whispered, checking the portable monitor Dr. Williams had provided. "We can't keep running like this. She needs a hospital." Marcus made a decision that went against all his tactical training. "Then we go to a hospital." Sometimes the most dangerous move is the safest because it's the last thing they expect. Using the network's underground contacts, they formulated their most daring plan yet. Hiding in plain sight by entering the one place their enemies would be watching most carefully. Zara's condition deteriorated rapidly during the night. Her breathing became shallow and labored, her normally vibrant face pale and drawn. Dr. Johnson monitored her vital signs with growing alarm. "Her O2 sats are dropping below 90%, she reported, her professional demeanor barely masking her terror as a mother. "We can't wait any longer." Marcus studied the map of Denver Memorial Hospital. "Security will be heaviest at emergency and main entrances. We'll use the service entrance, near the loading dock. Shift changes at 6 a.m. That's our window." The plan was simple but desperate. Marcus would create a diversion at the main entrance, while Dr. Johnson used her medical credentials to slip in through the service area with Zara. "Many hospital staff won't know your face from news reports," Marcus reasoned. "Your white coat and confident demeanor will be your disguise." Dr. Johnson nodded, her expression resolute despite her fear. "Once inside, I know how to move through a hospital without attracting attention." As dawn broke, they positioned themselves near the hospital. Marcus handed Dr. Johnson a burner phone. "Text this number only in absolute emergency. I'll be monitoring. Hospital communications." With a last embrace for Zara and a meaningful nod to Marcus, Dr. Johnson straightened her borrowed lab coat and walked purposefully toward the service entrance, carrying her daughter. Right on schedule, Marcus created his diversion, a small electrical fire in a dumpster near the main entrance that triggered alarms and drew security away from other areas. Inside, Dr. Johnson moved with the confident authority of a physician on rounds. She avoided the main pediatric ward, instead heading for a specialized treatment room she had identified from the hospital directory. Dr. Peterson. A nurse looked up in surprise as Dr. Johnson entered the cardiopulmonary treatment area. "I thought you were on vacation." Without missing a beat, Dr. Johnson replied, "Emergency consult. This patient needs immediate pulmonary support. Her O2 is crashing." The nurse immediately shifted to professional mode, helping connect Zara to oxygen and monitoring equipment. Dr. Johnson breathed a momentary sigh of relief as the supplemental oxygen brought color back to her daughter's cheeks. Her relief was short-lived. Another nurse entered, eyes widening in recognition. "You're that doctor from the news, the one who needs to save her daughter's life," Dr. Johnson interrupted firmly. "Whatever you've heard, please. As a medical professional, help me now. Judge me later." The nurse hesitated, looking at Zara's fragile form and the monitors showing her precarious condition. Something in her expression softened. "What do you need?" For 20 precious minutes they worked together, stabilizing Zara with emergency protocols. Dr. Johnson administered medications from the hospital's supply, her expertise evident in every movement. The reprieve ended when a security alert blared over the PA system. "Code Silver, all departments. Unauthorized individuals in the building. Security protocols activated." "They found us," Dr. Johnson whispered. The nurse who had recognized her made a quick decision. "Treatment room 12. It's more secure. And there's a supply closet connecting to the next ward if you need to move quickly." As they transferred Zara, word spread among the hospital staff. Some were hostile, believing the media narrative about dangerous fugitives. Others, particularly those who had worked with Dr. Johnson at conferences or recognized her from medical journals, were skeptical of the official story. By the time security located them, a remarkable scene had unfolded. 6 healthcare professionals, 3 nurses, 2 residents, and a respiratory therapist, had formed a protective cordon around Zara's treatment room. "This child is receiving life-saving treatment," stated the senior nurse firmly when security demanded entry. "As medical professionals, we cannot and will not interrupt critical care." Outside the hospital, events escalated quickly. Police surrounded the building. News vans arrived, broadcasting live. Social media exploded with updates as patients and visitors began live streaming, the dramatic scene unfolding in the pediatric wing. Marcus, monitoring from a secure location nearby, watched as public sentiment began shifting in real time. The image of armed officers confronting medical staff protecting a sick child created a powerful narrative that transcended political divisions. Inside, Dr. Johnson approached the senior nurse. "I don't want anyone risking their careers for us. When Zara is stabilized, I'll surrender myself." "That won't be necessary," came a voice from the doorway. Dr. Elizabeth Chen, Chief of Pediatrics, strode in with authority. "I've reviewed this child's case. She requires continuous treatment for at least 12 hours before she can be safely moved." She faced the security team directly. "As Chief of Medicine, I am invoking my authority under hospital protocols to declare this a medical emergency that supersedes security concerns. This child will not be removed from treatment." The standoff intensified when Victor Roth himself arrived at the scene, ostensibly to assist authorities. Camera crews captured his arrival in a luxury SUV with private security. "That man has no medical training or authority here," Dr. Chen stated when informed of his presence. "He will not be permitted in patient care areas." Marcus, watching the live streams, recognized a crucial opportunity. Disguised as a medical equipment technician, he slipped into the hospital through a maintenance entrance, using the chaos to his advantage. When he reached the pediatric floor, he found an extraordinary scene. The medical staff had been joined by patients and their families, forming a human chain protecting the corridor to Zara's room. Someone had printed hundreds of copies of the viral video screenshots, plastering them throughout the ward. Marcus made contact with Dr. Johnson, who was continuing Zara's treatment despite the chaos. "Public opinion is shifting dramatically," he informed her. "The hospital standoff is being broadcast nationwide. It's no longer just about us. It's become symbolic of standing up to corruption and racism." Outside, Victor Roth made a critical mistake. Frustrated by the hospital's refusal to hand over Dr. Johnson and Zara, he was caught on a hot mic by a nearby news crew. "These people are protecting criminals," he hissed to his security chief. "Get those arrogant doctors out of the way and grab the woman and her brat. I don't care what it takes." The unfiltered comment spread across social media within minutes, further damaging his carefully cultivated public image. As public pressure mounted, local police found themselves in an uncomfortable position. Their orders from above were clear, but the optics of storming a hospital to remove a sick child from treatment were politically disastrous. The situation reached critical mass when the hospital administrator addressed waiting reporters. "Denver, Memorial has a sacred duty to provide care to all patients regardless of circumstances. We will not interrupt life-saving treatment of a child, period." For a brief moment, it seemed the tide had turned. Then came the announcement that chilled everyone inside the hospital. "Attention all units. This is now a federal operation. SWAT team has been authorized to breach and secure suspects. All hospital personnel are ordered to clear the area immediately." The SWAT team, dressed in full tactical gear, positioned themselves at all hospital entrances, preparing to breach despite the administrator's protests. Inside, Marcus and Dr. Johnson exchanged looks of determination. They had run out of options for escape, but perhaps they could still control the narrative. "Let them see exactly what they're doing," Marcus suggested. "Make sure every camera captures what happens next." As the SWAT team prepared to enter, medical staff turned their phones to livestream mode, determined to document whatever came next. The image was powerful in its simplicity. Doctors and nurses in white coats linking arms to form a human shield around a treatment room containing a 6-year-old girl attached to oxygen and monitoring equipment. Opposite them stood black-clad SWAT officers with tactical gear and weapons, hesitating at the threshold. The moment a SWAT officer raised his hand to push aside a gray-haired pediatric nurse, dozens of phones captured the scene from multiple angles. Within seconds, the images were streaming live to millions of viewers worldwide. "They're here to take a critically ill child from medical care," one doctor announced loudly for the benefit of recording devices. "We took an oath to do no harm. Standing aside would violate that oath." Outside the hospital, thousands had gathered in an impromptu protest. What had begun as a simple case of racism on an airplane had transformed into a symbol of systemic injustice, the power of wealth, and privilege to override basic human decency. As pressure mounted, the SWAT team received conflicting orders through their communications. Some officers lowered their weapons, visibly uncomfortable with their assignment. In this tense standoff, Victor Roth made his fatal miscalculation. Frustrated by the delay, he pushed past the police cordon, striding toward the hospital entrance with his private security detail. "I'm paying for this operation and I expect results," he shouted at the police captain, unaware that nearby protesters were recording every word. "That woman and her brat made me look like a racist on national television. I want them brought out in handcuffs now." A protester challenged him directly. "So you're not denying you said those things to a 6-year-old girl?" Roth's face contorted with rage. "I can say whatever I want to whoever I want. Do you know who I am? I own half the security contracts in this country." His unfiltered outburst spread across social media platforms instantly, hashtagged #RothMeltdown. The careful public image he had cultivated for years crumbled in seconds. Inside the hospital, the standoff continued. Zara, now conscious and stabilized, looked directly at a security camera in the treatment room. "That's him," she said clearly, pointing at Roth's image on a nurse's phone. "That's the man who called me a monkey on the airplane." Her simple, childlike testimony, broadcast live, carried more weight than hours of adult arguments. Zara Speaks began trending alongside one hospital standoff. Meanwhile, Marcus received an encrypted message from Jackson. "Package delivered. All platforms. 10 minutes." Exactly 10 minutes later, The complete unedited video from the airplane incident, enhanced and authenticated by forensic experts, was released simultaneously across every major social media platform. The underground network had succeeded where individual efforts had failed, using distributed servers that couldn't be silenced by corporate influence. The video showed, without any possibility of misinterpretation, Victor Roth's racist tirade against a 6-year-old child. It captured flight attendant Karen Matthews deliberately ignoring his behavior while targeting Dr. Johnson and Marcus for removal. Most damning of all, it included Victor's whispered phone call. "Make sure they never reach San Francisco. Use whatever resources necessary." The reaction was immediate and overwhelming. Victor's company, SecureTech Solutions, issued an emergency statement. In light of disturbing footage, Victor Roth has been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. SecureTech categorically condemns racism in all forms. Politicians, who had previously supported the manhunt, began distancing themselves. Troubling new evidence has emerged that requires a full and transparent investigation, announced the governor, who had authorized the state police involvement. Inside the hospital, the SWAT team received new orders to stand down. The hospital administrator approached Dr. Johnson with visible relief. "The federal warrants have been temporarily suspended," she informed them. "You're safe for now." For the first time in days, Dr. Johnson allowed herself to break down, sobbing with relief as she held Zara close. Marcus placed a supportive hand on her shoulder, his own exhaustion finally showing. Their reprieve was brief. Rebecca Chen, the investigative journalist who had been arrested for supporting them, had been released and immediately resumed her reporting. She broke the news that the governor had received a $1 million campaign contribution from Victor Roth just days before ordering the National Guard to mobilize. "This isn't over," Marcus warned. "Roth is wounded but not defeated. He still has powerful connections." His prediction proved accurate when, 3 hours later, the hospital received orders signed by the governor himself. The National Guard was being mobilized to restore order at the hospital, with authorization to remove the fugitives, regardless of medical considerations. Dr. Chen, the chief of pediatrics, stood firm. "I'm invoking emergency medical protocols. We're conducting an emergency hearing right here, right now, to determine if this child can be safely moved." In an unprecedented move, she assembled a panel of medical experts in the hospital conference room. Court officials were brought in to create a legal record. With cameras rolling, they conducted an emergency hearing on the hospital premises. What had begun as a manhunt had transformed into a landmark case being argued in real time before a global audience. The fundamental question was no longer about one incident of racism, but about whether wealth and power could override justice, medical ethics, and basic human rights. As the hearing commenced, Marcus received notification that the underground network's evidence compilation had been delivered to media outlets worldwide. The full extent of SecureTech's discriminatory algorithms, their prison profit connections, and Victor Roth's ties to hate groups were now entering the public record. The hearing's outcome would determine not just Zara's immediate medical fate, but potentially set precedent for how similar cases of power imbalance would be handled in the future. Have you ever witnessed a moment when the truth broke through? All the barriers put up to hide it? Comment number 1 if you believe that sometimes it takes ordinary people showing extraordinary courage to expose corruption at the highest levels. If you're inspired by those who stand up against powerful forces despite the personal risk, hit that like button and subscribe now. With the world watching and the National Guard on their way, would this makeshift hospital courtroom deliver justice where traditional systems had failed? Would Victor Roth's powerful connections override the overwhelming evidence against him? And what ultimate price would Marcus, Dr. Johnson, and little Zara have to pay for standing their ground? The hospital conference room transformed into an impromptu courtroom as medical experts, legal representatives, and court officials assembled. Glass walls allowed the gathered crowd of medical staff, patients, and media to witness proceedings. That would normally happen behind closed doors. Dr. Johnson sat with quiet dignity, her lab coat exchanged for more formal attire provided by sympathetic hospital staff. Marcus remained standing near the door, his military bearing evident in his posture, eyes constantly scanning for threats despite the temporary reprieve. The court-appointed attorney assigned to them, Sarah Daniels, had surprised everyone by refusing to simply go through the motions. A public defender with 15 years of experience, she had arrived expecting to process routine paperwork, only to find herself at the center of a case that would likely be studied in law schools for years to come. "Your Honor," she addressed the emergency court judge who had been brought in, "my clients have been denied due process at every turn. Before any discussion of removing them from this facility, we must address the substantial evidence that they are, in fact, victims rather than perpetrators." Judge Richard Hoffman, a seasoned jurist known for his strict interpretation of procedural rules, appeared uncomfortable with the unusual setting, but committed to maintaining proper judicial standards. "This is highly irregular," he acknowledged. "But these are irregular circumstances. We will proceed with establishing facts before making any determinations." Victor Roth had assembled a legal team of 5 high-powered attorneys from the prestigious firm of Baker & Mitchell. Their lead counsel, Patricia Montgomery, rose with practiced authority. "Your Honor, this theatrical display is unnecessary. We have federal warrants for the arrest of these individuals. Medical concerns can be addressed in appropriate facilities under proper supervision. This entire proceeding is an attempt to circumvent lawful authority." Judge Hoffman's response was measured but firm. "Counsel, when life-threatening medical conditions are involved, the court has a duty to ensure that enforcement actions don't constitute a separate threat to life. We will proceed." The first witnesses were passengers from Flight 447 who had come forward despite intimidation. A college professor described Victor's racist tirade in clinical detail. A retired military officer corroborated Marcus's measured response. A flight attendant from another airline testified about the culture of preferential treatment for platinum members that routinely overrode safety protocols. Most compelling was Dr. Stephanie Wong, a child psychologist who had examined Zara that morning. "The child exhibits clear symptoms of acute trauma consistent with her account of the events," Dr. Wong testified. "Her drawings and verbal descriptions match precisely with the video evidence, down to details no child could invent or be coached to describe." Victor Roth's legal team objected continually, attempting to exclude the video evidence on procedural grounds. "The video was obtained illegally and distributed without authentication," Montgomery argued. "It should be inadmissible." Sarah Daniels countered. "Multiple forensic experts have now authenticated this footage. Furthermore, the extraordinary circumstances of its suppression through corporate and political channels justify the manner of its ultimate release." The legal battle intensified when Dr. Johnson took the stand. With quiet eloquence, she described watching her daughter being terrorized, the systematic efforts to discredit them, and the life-threatening disruption to Zara's medical treatment. "As a physician, I took an oath to do no harm," she concluded. "Every action I've taken has been to protect my daughter's well-being when all systems that should have protected her failed to do so." Marcus's testimony brought a different dimension to the proceedings. His controlled presence and precise military language impressed even skeptical observers. He systematically outlined the escalating responses to what should have been a simple airline incident report, pointing to the disproportionate resources deployed against them as evidence of broader corruption. "In my military career, I learned to recognize when a reaction is disproportionate to a trigger," he explained. "The resources deployed against a doctor and her child after a verbal airline incident matched what I've seen used against high-value terrorist targets, not American citizens seeking justice." The case seemed to be shifting in their favor when Judge Hoffman received a message from his clerk. After reading it, his demeanor noticeably changed. "We'll take a 15-minute recess," he announced abruptly. During the break, Sarah discovered, through courthouse contacts, that the judge had received a call from the state Supreme Court Chief Justice, who had been appointed by a governor whose largest campaign donor was Victor Roth. When proceedings resumed, Judge Hoffman ruled that the video evidence would be considered provisionally admissible pending further authentication, effectively neutering its impact. Even more damaging, he announced, "The court finds that while there are legitimate medical concerns, they do not override the authority of duly issued federal warrants. Arrangements will be made for the minor child to receive appropriate medical care in a secure facility while the legal process continues." Dr. Johnson's face crumpled in disbelief. Even with overwhelming evidence and public support, the system was still protecting Victor Roth. As bailiffs moved to take them into custody, a court clerk rushed in with a sealed envelope. "Your Honor, emergency filing from the Federal District Court." Judge Hoffman read the document with visible surprise. "It appears a separate federal judge has issued a temporary restraining order preventing the removal of the minor child from medical care on civil rights grounds." The courtroom erupted in confusion. Victor Roth's legal team huddled in urgent consultation while Sarah Daniels received a cryptic text message. Anonymous flight attendant provided cabin recordings to federal jurisdiction. Check news in 5. 5 minutes later, breaking news alerts lit up phones throughout the courtroom. A flight attendant had anonymously provided the airline's official cabin recordings, including microphone feeds from throughout the first class cabin to federal investigators. The recordings matched the video exactly, removing any doubt about authentication. Despite this new evidence, Judge Hoffman made his ruling. Citing technical jurisdictional issues, he ruled in Victor Roth's favor, ordering Dr. Johnson and Marcus to surrender to federal authorities once Zara was medically stabilized. As they left the makeshift courtroom, Sarah Daniels whispered, "This isn't over. The federal TRO buys us time to appeal, and the public reaction to this ruling will be explosive." She was right. Outside the hospital, the crowd had grown to thousands, many holding signs with Zara's image and slogans like "Justice before privilege" and "Protect our children from hate." Marcus and Dr. Johnson returned to Zara's room, where the child was sleeping peacefully, her condition finally stabilized. "We lost this round," Marcus acknowledged grimly. "But sometimes the battle isn't won in the courtroom, it's won in the court of public opinion." Dr. Johnson took her daughter's small hand. "I'll never stop fighting for her. Never." As night fell, National Guard vehicles could be seen positioning around the hospital perimeter, preparing to enforce the court's order when Zara was declared medically stable for transport. Despite overwhelming evidence and public support, the machinery of power was still moving inexorably against them. What they didn't know was that investigative journalist Rebecca Chen was about to uncover the final piece of evidence that would break the case wide open. Rebecca Chen hadn't slept in 36 hours. After her release from detainment on dubious national security charges, the investigative journalist had devoted every waking moment to unraveling the web surrounding Victor Roth. Her apartment had become a war room, walls covered with documents, financial records, and connection maps. "It's not just the airline incident," she explained to her editor via encrypted call. "That was just the trigger. Roth's reaction was so extreme because he has much more to hide." Following financial breadcrumbs through a labyrinth of shell companies had revealed a disturbing pattern. Victor Roth's company, SecureTech Solutions, wasn't merely providing surveillance technology to government agencies. Their proprietary algorithms contained racial bias by design, not by accident. Most damning was the discovery that the judge, who had ruled against Dr. Johnson and Marcus, had received campaign donations from 3 different shell companies, all ultimately owned by Roth. "He's purchased influence throughout the entire system," Rebecca realized. "Law enforcement contracts, judicial campaign contributions, prison industry investments. It's a closed loop of profit and power." When she published her findings on her independent news platform, the story spread like wildfire. Roth corruption began trending globally. Major news organizations, initially hesitant to challenge powerful interests, now found themselves forced to cover the story or risk losing credibility. Back at the hospital, Marcus received the breaking news from Jackson, who had been coordinating, with Rebecca behind the scenes. "This changes everything," Marcus told Dr. Johnson as they reviewed the findings on a secure tablet. "Roth isn't just fighting to cover up one racist incident. He's fighting to protect an entire corrupt system that generates billions in profits." The revelations continued throughout the day. Former employees of SecureTech came forward with testimonies about how their algorithms deliberately flagged minority neighborhoods for increased police scrutiny, creating a self-fulfilling prophecy of higher arrest rates that justified more surveillance contracts. A whistleblower from within the Department of Justice revealed that a pending investigation into SecureTech's practices had been mysteriously shelved after political pressure from above. Most shocking was the discovery that Victor Roth's tech company had developed a database tracking civil rights activists, journalists, and whistleblowers across the country, categorizing them by threat level to corporate interests and logging. Personal vulnerabilities that could be exploited to discredit them if necessary. That explains how they moved so quickly against us, Marcus realized. We were immediately identified as threats and processed through their system. Public outrage grew exponentially. Protests spread from the hospital to Victor Roth's corporate headquarters and the state capitol. International human rights organizations issued statements of concern about the targeting of a medical professional and her child. As pressure mounted, cracks began appearing in Victor Roth's support network. His company's board of directors called an emergency meeting. Political allies began distancing themselves with carefully worded statements about taking allegations seriously and supporting full investigations. Inside the hospital, Marcus received word that his former SEAL teammates had established a secure perimeter around the facility, blending with the crowds and providing invisible protection against potential threats. Their presence didn't violate any laws, but it ensured that any attempt to forcibly remove Dr. Johnson and Zara would meet with highly trained resistance. "Commander," came a secure message from Torres, his former communications specialist. "We've intercepted chatter about private contractors planning an extraction tonight, bypassing National Guard protocols. Team is in position to counter." The legal landscape shifted dramatically when United Nations human rights observers officially requested access to monitor the situation, elevating what had begun as a personal incident to an international human rights concern. Dr. Johnson, watching these developments unfold from Zara's bedside, could hardly believe how far things had escalated. All of this because one man couldn't simply apologize for racist behavior on a plane, she said wonderingly. "It was never about the apology," Marcus replied. "It was about what you represented, a successful black professional woman who wouldn't be intimidated into silence. You challenged not just his behavior, but the entire system that protected it." Their conversation was interrupted by Sarah Daniels, arriving with urgent news. "We're shifting legal strategy. Instead of fighting the individual warrants, we're filing a class action lawsuit against SecureTech and all associated entities for systemic civil rights violations. Your case becomes Exhibit A in a much larger pattern." This approach created a legal firewall that made it more difficult to isolate and target them individually. By embedding their case within a broader pattern of corporate malfeasance, they gained additional layers of protection and scrutiny. The strategy was already showing results. Law enforcement agencies across the country were facing uncomfortable questions about their contracts with SecureTech and the algorithms that determined their patrol patterns and resource allocation. Some police departments began announcing reviews of their technology contracts. Tech oversight committees in 3 major cities called for hearings on algorithmic bias in law enforcement tools. Even within federal agencies, internal division emerged as career professionals raised concerns about being manipulated by corporate interests. Some agents began refusing to participate in what they saw as a politically motivated pursuit of Marcus and Dr. Johnson. As Rebecca Chen's investigation continued, she uncovered the most damning evidence yet: internal emails showing that Victor Roth had personally intervened to ensure that SecureTech's facial recognition algorithms maintained higher error rates for dark-skinned faces, despite engineers noting the problem could be fixed. "This wasn't negligence," Rebecca wrote in her explosive follow-up piece. "It was deliberate engineering of racial bias into systems that determine who gets surveilled, who gets stopped, who gets arrested, and ultimately, who gets incarcerated." The technology industry reacted with shock and calls for regulatory oversight. Competing companies distanced themselves from SecureTech, emphasizing their own commitment to algorithmic fairness. Victor Roth, watching his empire begin to crumble, made a desperate move. Private security cameras captured him boarding his private jet at a small airfield outside Denver. "Roth is running," Jackson reported to Marcus. "FAA flight plan shows Zurich as destination, Switzerland. No extradition for financial crimes." Before authorities could react to this development, the jet was airborne, carrying Victor Roth away from American jurisdiction. But his escape attempt only reinforced the appearance of guilt, accelerating the collapse of his carefully constructed public image. What Victor didn't realize was that his hasty departure had been anticipated. As his plane reached cruising altitude, he received a secure call from his head of security. "Sir, we have a situation at headquarters. Federal agents with search warrants. Their imaging servers seizing documents. And sir, they have someone with them. A former secure tech engineer named Zhang. He's giving them access to the encrypted databases." Victor's face drained of color. Edward Zhang had been the lead architect of secure tech's most sensitive systems, including the algorithmic tools that had built Victor's fortune and the tracking system that had allowed him to target his enemies so effectively. "Stop him!" Victor shouted into the phone. "Use whatever resources necessary." This desperate command, issued from international airspace to private contractors on American soil, would prove to be his final mistake. Victor Roth's private jet touched down at Denver International Airport just after midnight, escorted by 2 F-16 fighter jets. The emergency landing had been ordered after intelligence agencies intercepted his instructions to private contractors, instructions that constituted conspiracy to obstruct justice and potentially endanger federal agents. As he deplaned under heavy security, Victor maintained his composure, adjusting his Italian silk tie and walking with the confident stride of a man accustomed to bending systems to his will. "This is all a misunderstanding," he informed the federal agents who met him on the tarmac. "I'm returning voluntarily to clear my name." In truth, his hand had been forced. Swiss authorities, alerted to the developing situation, had denied his landing request. With limited fuel and nowhere to go, returnees had become his only option. The airport had been partially cleared for his arrival, but one person had received special permission to be present. Marcus Reed stood at a careful distance, watching as the man who had caused so much suffering was taken into federal custody. Their eyes met briefly across the tarmac. Victor's confident facade cracked for just a moment, revealing the rage beneath. "This isn't over, Reed," he called out, as agents guided him toward a waiting vehicle. "You have no idea who you're dealing with." Marcus didn't respond. His presence wasn't about confrontation but confirmation. He needed to see with his own eyes that the threat to Dr. Johnson and Zara was contained, at least temporarily. What happened next caught everyone by surprise. As Victor was being escorted to the federal transport vehicle, an airport employee suddenly broke from the small group of essential personnel and lunged toward him. "You ruined my brother's life," the man shouted. "Your algorithm flagged him as high risk because of his neighborhood. 3 years for a crime he didn't commit." Security reacted instantly, tackling the man before he could reach Victor. In the commotion, Victor broke away from his escorts and made a dash for an airport service door, disappearing inside. Marcus reacted instinctively, pursuing him through the door while federal agents dealt with the disturbance. Inside the service corridor, he followed the sound of running footsteps, his military training kicking in as he moved with silent efficiency. The chase led through maintenance tunnels beneath the airport, a labyrinth of concrete corridors and mechanical rooms. Marcus realized that Victor seemed to know exactly where he was going, suggesting this wasn't an improvised escape, but a contingency plan. When Marcus finally cornered him in a secluded mechanical room, Victor was already speaking urgently into a satellite phone. "Execute Protocol Omega. Yes, all assets. Priority targets are the woman and child." Before Marcus could intervene, Victor revealed another surprise. With practiced movements, he assumed a combat stance, revealing training far beyond what one would expect from a corporate executive. 12 years private military before I built secure tech, Victor explained, noting Marcus's surprise. "I know how to handle myself, Commander Reed." What followed was a brutal hand-to-hand confrontation between two highly trained opponents. Victor fought with the desperate fury of a man who had everything to lose, while Marcus maintained the disciplined focus of his SEAL training. "You should have minded your own business on that plane," Victor taunted between strikes. "Your dead daughter should have taught you that lesson." The mention of his daughter nearly broke Marcus's concentration, exactly as Victor had intended. "Yes, I know all about Sophia Reed," Victor continued. "My systems track everything. The officers who killed her were clients. We made sure the body cam footage disappeared." This psychological warfare was calculated to provoke an emotional response that would give Victor an opening. For a moment, it worked. Marcus's control slipped as rage threatened to overwhelm his training. In that critical moment, Dr. Johnson's voice cut through his fury. Not physically present, but the memory of her calm strength when protecting Zara reminded him of why they were fighting. This wasn't about vengeance. It was about justice and protecting the vulnerable. Marcus regained his focus, countering Victor's next attack with precise efficiency. The tide of the battle turned as Marcus's superior training and conditioning began to tell against Victor's aging reflexes. Realizing he was losing, Victor made a desperate move, grabbing a maintenance worker who had stumbled upon their fight. Holding the terrified employee as a human shield, he backed toward an exit. "Stand down, Reed, or this man dies too." Outside the airport, Dr. Johnson had received urgent warning from Jackson about Victor's escape and his order to target her and Zara. Against Marcus's instructions, she had come to the airport, leaving Zara safely guarded at the hospital. Through service corridor windows, she witnessed the hostage situation unfolding. Without hesitation, she activated Zara's phone, the same phone that had captured the original incident. Still in video mode, she recorded Victor's threats and hostage-taking. "The world needs to see who you really are," she called out, making her presence known. "Not just what you said on the plane, but who you are when the masks come off." Victor's Cow. Attention split between Marcus and this new development. The very witness he had tried so hard to silence now documenting his criminal actions in real time. This momentary distraction was all Marcus needed. With a precisely calculated move, he disarmed Victor while protecting the hostage, bringing the tech executive to the ground with a controlled takedown that neutralized the threat without causing serious injury. As federal agents flooded the corridor, securing Victor and ensuring the hostage's safety, Marcus acknowledged Dr. Johnson with respectful gratitude. Her courage in coming to the airport had created the opportunity they needed. "You shouldn't have come," he admonished gently, "but I'm glad you did." Outside, they watched as Victor Roth was placed in a heavily secured transport vehicle. For the first time, he looked genuinely defeated, the carefully constructed facade of respectability completely shattered. Their momentary victory was interrupted by Jackson's urgent call. "We've got problems at the hospital. Roth's private contractors are moving in despite his capture. They're following pre-established orders." Without Victor to call them off, his mercenaries were proceeding with their mission: extract or eliminate the key witnesses who could bring down the entire network. "Zara," Dr. Johnson gasped. "I've alerted hospital security," Jackson continued, "but these are ex-military contractors. They know how to breach secure facilities." Marcus and Dr. Johnson raced back to the hospital, coordinating with Jackson and the team of former SEALs who had positioned themselves as Zara's unofficial protectors. They arrived to find the hospital in lockdown, security personnel exchanging gunfire with black-clad contractors attempting to breach the pediatric wing. Local police had responded, but were outgunned by the military-grade weapons deployed by Victor's private army. Inside, Zara remained protected by a core group of Marcus's former teammates who had established defensive positions around her room, but they were outnumbered and surrounded. Using his knowledge of hospital layout and tactical experience, Marcus coordinated a daring counter-operation. While hospital security and police engaged the main force of contractors, Marcus led Dr. Johnson through service corridors to reach Zara. The reunion was emotional, but brief. They still needed to escape the besieged hospital. In the chaos of the gun battle, something unexpected happened. Live broadcasts from journalists outside the hospital captured the private military contractors attacking a civilian medical facility. The shocking footage streamed to millions of viewers worldwide. Moreover, Zara, who had been recording on her mother's phone since the first sounds of gunfire, captured crystal-clear audio of the contractors' radio communications, including explicit references to Roth's orders and eliminating witnesses. This real-time documentation of corporate-sponsored violence against a child in a hospital represented the final breaking point for public opinion. Law enforcement agencies that had been hesitant to fully engage suddenly deployed SWAT teams and negotiators. As dawn broke, Victor's private contractors found themselves surrounded by overwhelming force and abandoned by their corporate sponsors. Their tactical advantage evaporated as legitimate law enforcement, now free from political interference, brought the full weight of their authority to bear. One by one, the contractors surrendered, realizing they had become expendable assets in a lost cause. Their leader, cornered near Zara's room, made a final desperate attempt to complete his mission, only to find himself facing not just Marcus, but 6 former Navy SEALs who had once served under his command. "Stand down," Marcus ordered. "It's over." As the man was taken into custody, he revealed the final devastating truth. Roth wasn't the top, he was just a lieutenant. The organization remains active. This ominous revelation suggested that while one battle had been won, the war against systemic corruption and racism was far from over. 3 months after the dramatic hospital siege, Zara Johnson sat on a park bench in San Francisco, feeding ducks at a pond. Her successful treatment at UCSF Medical Center had stabilized her condition, allowing her to enjoy simple childhood pleasures that had once seemed impossible. Nearby, Dr. Amara Johnson watched her daughter with quiet joy. The ordeal had left invisible scars on them both, but witnessing Zara's resilience gave her hope. The child was in therapy, processing her trauma through art and play, gradually reclaiming her sense of security. "She's doing remarkably well," Dr. Johnson observed as Marcus Reed joined them, carrying coffee for her and hot chocolate for Zara. "Kids are more resilient than we give them credit for," Marcus replied, "especially when they have strong role models." The past months had brought sweeping changes. Victor Roth faced multiple federal indictments for conspiracy, obstruction of justice, and civil rights violations. His company, Secure Tech Solutions, had been placed under government oversight while investigations continued into their algorithmic bias and surveillance practices. More significantly, congressional hearings had been convened to examine the broader issues of technological discrimination in law enforcement and the justice system. Dr. Johnson had testified, her professional demeanor and first-hand experience, making her a powerful advocate for systemic reform. Professionally, she had been fully vindicated. The medical board had not only dismissed all allegations against her, but had issued a formal apology and offered her a leadership position on their ethics committee. Her hospital colleagues had welcomed her back with overwhelming support, many having joined protest movements during her ordeal. For Marcus, the path to healing had been more complex. The confrontation with Victor had forced him to face unresolved grief over his daughter's death. He had finally accessed the support services he had avoided, working through his PTSD with therapists who specialized in veteran trauma. "I've been offered a position with the Justice Department's new Civil Rights Enforcement Division," he told Dr. Johnson. "They want someone who understands both tactical operations and systemic discrimination." "Are you going to take it?" she asked. "I think so. It's a chance to change the system from within. Make sure what happened to Sophia, to Zara, doesn't happen to other families." Their conversation was interrupted by Zara running over, excited, to show them a new drawing, this one depicting the 3 of them together in a sunny park, a striking contrast to the traumatic scenes she had drawn months earlier. While they had achieved personal victories, the larger battle continued. Some perpetrators remained free, particularly the higher-level connections Victor had referenced. The system, though shaken, still contained flaws that allowed discrimination to flourish in subtle forms. To address these ongoing challenges, Dr. Johnson had helped establish the Accountability Network, an organization providing support for victims of similar incidents. Using medical, legal, and technical expertise, they documented patterns of discrimination and developed protocols for response when institutional systems failed. "We've already helped 3 families this month," she told Marcus. "People who would have been crushed by the system without support." For Zara's future, changes had come in unexpected forms. An anonymous donor, later revealed to be a consortium of medical professionals, had established the Zara Johnson Scholarship, supporting education for children affected by racial trauma. Most significantly, the Zara Protocol had been adopted by major airlines and transportation authorities, creating clear guidelines for responding to discriminatory incidents and protecting vulnerable passengers. As they walked through the park, A memorial caught Marcus's attention. Recently installed, it honored victims of hate crimes, including his daughter Sophia. The site brought a complex mixture of grief and purpose. "I think she would be proud," Dr. Johnson said gently, noting his expression, "of what you've done, what you're still doing." Before Marcus could respond, Jackson called with disturbing news. "We've got a situation. One of our monitored accounts just flagged activity from an organization called Heritage Protection Initiative. They've put Dr. Johnson and Zara on a watch list, and they've mentioned you specifically, Commander." The group Jackson had identified appeared to be the higher-level organization that Victor had alluded to, a sophisticated network of wealthy individuals using their influence to maintain systems of privilege and discrimination. "They're describing what happened with Roth as a tactical setback," Jackson continued. "They're already planning countermeasures against the reforms triggered by your case." Marcus and Dr. Johnson exchanged determined glances. The battle they had fought wasn't an isolated incident, but part of a longer struggle for justice that would continue. "Send me everything you have," Marcus instructed. "We'll brief the team tomorrow." As they left the park, Zara skipping ahead with childlike enthusiasm, Dr. Johnson reflected on how far they had come and the challenges still facing them. "We exposed one man's racism and uncovered an entire system designed to protect it," she observed. "How many more Victor Roths are out there, hiding behind respectability while funding hate?" "Too many," Marcus acknowledged. "But now we know how to fight them, and we're not fighting alone anymore." The setting sun cast long shadows as they walked toward their future, changed by trauma but strengthened by their shared commitment to justice. Behind them, unseen but ever present, remained the forces that had targeted them once, and might do so again. What had begun with a child's spilled drink on an airplane had exposed fault lines running through American society, challenging assumptions about how power operated in the shadows. Their story had become a catalyst for others to examine systems previously accepted without question. For Zara, watching her mother and Marcus walk alongside her with protective vigilance, the future held both promise and uncertainty. But she moved forward with the resilience of a child who had faced darkness and emerged into light, forever changed, but undefeated. As they reached their car, Marcus performed his habitual security scan of the surroundings, a reminder that while one chapter had closed, another was just beginning. The organization behind Victor Roth remained active, already selecting their next targets and refining their methods. The struggle for justice would continue, but now they had something they hadn't possessed before: a network of allies, public awareness, and a blueprint for exposing corruption at its highest levels. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together: a doctor, a soldier, and a child whose courage had started a movement that could no longer be silenced. The story of Zara, Dr. Johnson, and Marcus teaches us powerful lessons about courage, systemic racism, and the importance of standing up for what's right. It reminds us that racism doesn't just exist in obvious hate speech or violence. It often hides within seemingly respectable institutions, protected by wealth and influence. When one person with power can use connections to manipulate media, law enforcement, and the justice system, it reveals dangerous fault lines in our society. This story also highlights how ordinary people can become extraordinary when forced to confront injustice. Dr. Johnson never intended to become an activist, but when her child was threatened, she discovered a strength she didn't know she possessed. Marcus initially intervened as any decent person should, but found himself drawn into a larger battle that helped him process his own unresolved trauma. Perhaps most importantly, the story teaches us about the power of alliance and solidarity. No single individual could have stood against the systemic forces arrayed against them. It took a network of allies, from medical professionals to journalists, from legal experts to former military personnel, to expose corruption and create meaningful change. Finally, it reminds us that justice is not a destination, but a journey. Even as one battle ends, others begin. Systems of oppression don't disappear with a single victory. They adapt, regroup, and continue operating in new forms. True justice requires constant vigilance, ongoing education, and a commitment to recognizing and addressing discrimination in all its forms. What systems of power have you witnessed protecting those who engage in discriminatory behavior? Have you ever experienced a moment when standing up against injustice seemed impossible because of the resources aligned against you? Share your experiences in the comments below. If this story moved you, please hit the like button and subscribe to support more content that exposes the reality of systemic discrimination and celebrates those brave enough to stand against it. Your engagement helps these important stories reach others who need to hear them. Thank you for joining us for this powerful journey from a single act of racism on an airplane to the exposure of a nationwide network of corruption. Remember, change begins when ordinary people refuse to accept injustice as normal. What will you do when faced with your moment of choice?